Good afternoon, everybody. This is the premiere episode of the Monday afternoon Roundtable. It's going to be a podcast that we play on Spotify and it's going to be on YouTube. Basically, it's going to be a kind of a catch-all podcast, and a little bit about it is going to be, it's a podcast by the Munday family. Myself, my name's Jason Munday. We've got
David Munday.
My brother David Munday, who's my older brother. We've got another brother named Tim, and Tim's son, Garrett, is going to be part of the podcast.
Our cool nephew.
Yeah, our tech-savvy nephew who is behind the scenes right now doing the producing part of it.
He's a lot better looking than we are.
Yeah, and that's odd. That's pretty odd. You know, we got the ugly ones up front, but but Tim will be joining us halfway through, or I'll step off and Tim will come in. But a little bit about what we want to do. This podcast is going to be flexible.
It is
eclectic,
fun,
interesting. It's basically each episode will have something interesting from the point of view of myself, David, Tim, even Garrett. Myself, David, and Tim are three retired law enforcement officers who are currently involved in a private investigations business. So we'll talk about our law enforcement times, our private investigative times, stories. Of course, we won't use real names. We'll protect the innocent and the guilty. We could also talk about current trends in those fields, as well as current events, politics, funny stories, or sports, or modern culture. And every single episode, near the end, we're going to have a segment called Last Call. And Last Call will be dealing with a review of an alcoholic beverage, whether it be bourbon, a liquor, or vodka, or beer, or wine, any type. And we're going to have our contact information at the end. So if you have a specific drink you'd like for us to review, send it in and we'll review it.
Last call.
That's the last call. That's be it on every episode.
And what we want to do there is just take, because I enjoy whiskey, as does Tim, and we like the different flavors, different blends, the bourbons, the whiskeys, and we just want to talk about it because we have a lot of people out there, a huge audience that loves whiskey and bourbon as well. So we're just going to talk about it a little bit and have fun with it. But to start off with, we're going to talk about the investigative industry.
That's right.
The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
And we've total years of service between the three of us is over 100 years.
Yeah, it's almost 120.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Counting the PI and the law enforcement.
Okay. And then our father was in law enforcement for 30 years,
Mm-hmm.
and retired. And our nephew,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's kind of a family
Our first
trait.
cousin.
True. I forgot about him too.
Yeah.
But anyhow, that's we kind of know this industry. So when we retired, I retired first, and I got into the investigative business and law enforcement consulting part of it, which is about 50% of what I do now. Mm-hmm. And that keeps my finger in the pie, if you will, on law enforcement trends and implications and how law enforcement's changed. It's been 15 years since I retired. So a lot has changed, but by doing the consulting part of it, I get to see it. I get to help with policy and procedures, how law enforcement agencies run professionally, the accreditation part of it, and especially the policy portion of it.
And you're probably up to date now as much as you were when you were in law enforcement.
Yes, probably more so, Jason, because I get to go out and see different departments. Luckily, I get to work with some of the fairly large agencies throughout the nation and seeing how they operate, and it helps me. I bring back something from every on-site visit.
Sure.
Even the small departments. I've worked with agencies, with 6 people.
Yeah.
And those are fun. They're just as fun as agencies with 10,000
Mm-hmm.
officers, because you get this. It's unique, but they all have the same problems and issues for the most part, and their policies have to pretty much be the same as well. So, anyhow, that's about what we're going to talk about today.
Yep. And we've when I say all, our family members have transitioned from law enforcement into private investigations. What do you think was the easiest part of the transition and the hardest part of the transition?
Perception. By carrying the badge, now we represent people on the other side. Mm-hmm. And I caught a little bit of flack from that. There was one individual, a high-ranking law enforcement officer. I was in court on a murder case with the defendant, of course. That's who we work for now. And that individual followed me out of the courtroom and said, "I can't believe you're doing this. You're on the dark side. You've gone to the dark side." And I'm going, really? this is what I do now, and I'm going to give it all. I'm going to
Yep.
give 100% to it. And it was a little bit hard at first because a lot of my law enforcement friends that were still in the business kind of act like it was something I was doing wrong. But as time went on, especially after those same individuals retired, they came and apologized and
Yeah.
said, okay, I get it now. I see it.
And it's not that we're working for the dark side. We're working for justice, the justice system.
Exactly right.
Every defendant, no matter what they're charged with or their background, whatever, deserves a fair defense.
Right.
And by us working for the defense, we are also help make law enforcement better.
We try our best. And that's what I told that very day. I told that individual, that administrative officer, I said, you keep your guys on your toes and I won't be on their heels.
That's right.
And I was serious about that. And he thought it was some funny joke, but I'm saying, when they ask me to come in a lot of times on the expert witness portion of it, it's when they violate a policy or they've made an illegal arrest or they've violated the Fourth Amendment, the Constitution, or a mini list of things they could have done wrong in a procedural while they're working on the road or making an arrest during a raid, during an officer-involved shooting, officer-involved pursuit. That's where the majority of my cases are, again, officer-involved shootings or pursuits, because the high liability associated with it. Those officers have to follow a procedure. And I look at three different things, really: training, policy and procedures, and supervision. And it's every time there's a missing element in each one of those things.
Oh, yeah.
When I do my investigation.
And that's with the accreditation or the consulting. Also, when we do the criminal defense cases, I know from conversations with you that we both have had cases where the law enforcement agency did top notch.
Yes.
And we've had cases where the law enforcement agency did very poorly.
Same.
And everything in between.
Right. And it's good. I think it's good. It's probably not good for our defendant or our client, but when I see a law enforcement agency that has crossed every T and dotted every I to make sure that they do a thorough, complete investigation, they're not biased in their approach and in as far as their search warrants and arrests and different things, their reports, and you can go through and you can just check off and say, go back to your attorney that you're working for and said, the law enforcement agency's done everything they could. They've conducted a thorough, complete investigation. And that's what the attorney wants to know. I mean, and then again, but more times than not, Jason, and you'll agree with me, we find a lot of issues during our discovery review, because we get every document, every report, anything that the law enforcement agency does with the discovery rules, we get copies. If it's a handwritten note, we get that copy from the law enforcement. And so we just go through and check, make sure that they've done everything they're supposed to do, see where there's discrepancies or where there's issues or where there's possibility our client didn't do the crime. And I've had that. And I've won cases with the attorneys I work with have done an outstanding job and won many, many awards for working cases like that, criminal cases, indigent service cases, where they come in and it's law enforcement jumped the gun.
Sure.
And they arrested the wrong person. And that's something, that should never happen, but it does. When I was in law enforcement, did I think it happened? No. I thought everyone we arrested, they're guilty. Everyone's guilty that goes through that courtroom. But I had a lawyer when I first got in this business. He said, David, everybody that's arrested, they're not guilty. Not always.
It does give you a different perspective.
It does.
And just a little background, all three of us, myself, David, and Tim, have wide array of experience. We've all been supervisors. We've all been administrators within our departments, investigators, patrol, worked homicides, worked fatalities, worked robberies, sex cases, drug cases. We've been involved in training, and you've really got the niche as far as policy and procedure. You're well known in that area, which every department has a policy and procedure, or they should.
They do.
And that's really the key component in use of force or any misconduct.
Right. And the high liability issues within law enforcement, especially use of force and pursuits. How the agency does business. It's a good business model if they have a strong policy. Now, some agencies have the rubber stamp policy. And that's what I'm going to call it, a rubber stamp, because that's exactly what it is.
Just insert agency name.
Insert the name. And you and I, we were working a case here a while back where we're working for we're looking at a certain department, and another department was identified in the policy because that's an error, and it's just they didn't prove it. And then that happens. And so a policy that I would rather have to stand up in court would be a policy that's written from the ground up for the culture of that department that I'm working for, whether it's a highway patrol, state police, local department, county sheriff, federal agency, whatever it may be, to have that policy focused on them and how they do business, and it captures the culture of that department. And each department's different. And it's just like an individual. And
that's good. And each policy and procedure should be a little different and tailored to that specific agency.
Right.
And the types of things that they do, where, some agencies that are in the rural area may have different responsibilities than an urban agency. So, and you've worked with both types. So,
right. But again, sliding back into our gig that we're doing now, the private investigations component, there's the way I like to describe it to people. And people ask all the time, and the first thing they ask is, how much do you charge when a client comes in? And then they want to know how quick we can get it done before they give us any facts about a case. But in the private investigations part, the way I describe it is it's hours and hours and hours of total boredom.
Very much.
And milliseconds of sheer excitement and adrenaline rush. But that keeps us coming back. It does. I mean, for me, working a case, when you can get out there and your heart starts beating a little quicker and your adrenaline gets up, when you're able to gather the information that you need, when you're able to make the case for your client.
And let's talk a little bit about the private investigation, especially our agency. We are a combined agency of 4 different companies. We have Blue Line Advantage, owned by you. We have 10 Star Investigative Services, owned by Tim. We have Spartan Secure Solutions, owned by me. And then we have All American Hustle, owned by Bradley and Brianna Rao. We haven't talked about them, but they're our partners. We all have come under a group known as Munday, Rao, and Associates. And we did that to combine resources. And we have investigators that range in age from 24 to 64. And ever in between. And there's places that the younger ones can get into that we wouldn't be able to get into. And there's places we can get into that they couldn't get into, or where we wouldn't look out of place. We are basically a all-purpose investigative firm. Full service. We handle, just like we talked about, the criminal defense. We also do civil investigations,
domestic family,
serve civil papers, do executive protection. We do a lot of that, private security.
The indigent services, we do a lot of work. The criminal cases, the serious felony investigations where the defendant receives an attorney and if qualified, receives a private investigator.
Yep.
In all capital cases, they receive 2 attorneys and 1 investigative company. And so we're working several of those right now.
Yeah, and people don't realize that it costs the client or the defendant $0 and it costs the attorney $0. The indigent services is paid through the state indigent services system or fund or whatever. So that's something to keep in mind. That I think a lot of attorneys aren't either. They're not aware of it or not aware of how easy it is to get.
Some of them don't like the red tape associated with it as far as the billing and keeping up with your time and being able to account for each half hour of your time. And as we have to do in our investigations. But I think it's a good thing. There's a little bit of a political component behind it because some people say, no, they don't deserve any kind of representation. They're guilty just because they don't have the funding or whatever. But there's 2 sides to it. And so what we try to do is come in and we take those cases if we feel it's something within our bailiwick. And I enjoy I enjoy working those cases. We've got several going on now.
I enjoy them too. I think they're very enjoyable. They're challenging sometimes.
That's a better word, I guess, than enjoyable, but challenging.
But yeah, but it's rewarding too.
There's a good word.
Again, we are working for justice and the truth.
Correct.
Are
our clients guilty? Sometimes.
Sometimes they are. Yeah.
So what we try to soften the blow a little bit.
Yeah.
Come in and show what we have to show. Of course, look at every element of a crime, but if we can show that there are issues with our clients' mental capacity, if we can show that there were issues in the law enforcement approach or their investigative procedures, things of that nature.
Yeah. And when I was supervising and managing a detective division, I would tell my detectives, I'd say, no matter how hard or how good you work a case, every case has some flaws in it. And that's human nature. You know, they would get discouraged in a trial if something was brought up, a mistake, and I'd be like, hey, this is a learning experience. This way you remember it and you don't do it again. So it makes it better for everyone to have, for a solid defense for every felony case. I mean, it makes the justice system better. Is there anything else you want to add as far as what we do?
Well, and just the investigative component, it's fun. And I want to, you know, sometimes we go out there and we see cases and we shake our head and say, what in the world? Especially the family, domestic law cases.
Oh, yeah.
I've traveled all over the United States working these cases. I've followed people in airplanes. I've followed people at the airports, 5-star restaurants, country clubs, biker bars, you name it. And what you were talking about earlier, we have a wide range of associate investigators that we can use that can fit in those events or circumstances, where I would look out of place in a biker bar, and where Bradley could go in and fit right in. And so, you know, what we try to do is mold to what we have. And so we can, a lot of times you'll look at a case and say, well, I really can't handle that because it's not what I can do, or it's not going to be a good fit for me. So, you know, and there's some cases we get that are just difficult. It takes months, if not years, on some of our cases. Some we can turn around fairly quickly. In the process serving component of it, a lot of people don't understand that the investigators can serve subpoenas, and we can serve civil summons after they've gone through a sheriff department at least one time. They have to make one attempt, I think, is the ruling. And I understand that, and I get that, but more times than not, the sheriff's department will make an attempt because they got a lot of papers to serve, and they'll send it back, and then we can go do it. And we usually make 3 attempts on each service, and we charge a reasonable, fair rate on our service fees, but they can be a little tricky too. Oh yeah, especially these divorce cases when you're serving a divorce summons or subpoenaing someone to court that just doesn't want to go, and we've had people slam doors in our face, and we've had people run, and you name it. So, and we've served papers from attorneys from out of state, and we have to honor the state where the paper comes from. We have to honor their law. You know, some states you can't serve after or on Sunday, and some states you have to make 4 attempts, one before 8 a.m., one after 6 before you can return it. Things like that. So we're up to speed on that, and that's one of our. I enjoy serving papers, but it can be a challenge. And I'm just opposite. I don't like doing that. It's just a part of the job that I don't like. Yeah. But I do, and I will, and but it's just one of those things. I'd rather do something else. Yeah, I enjoy the component of getting the kind of like serving the warrants when you were an officer. Yeah, it's kind of a cat and mouse game. It is, and sometimes you have to go to where they work, but we do it with respect. Oh yeah, definitely. I don't try to embarrass anyone. No. I was telling Tim the other day about a service guy worked in a restaurant. It was my 4th or 5th attempt. It was in a large city. I would just be behind him every time. I'd just miss him. So when I finally caught him, he was coming to work, and he ran into it was a restaurant. He ran into the bathroom, the men's room. I ran right behind him. He hits the urinal. I hit the urinal. I served the paper side by side, and he kind of got a kick out of it. He said, "Well, you
Yeah.
finally got me, didn't you? You finally got me." But he was served.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people think, "Well, I'm not accepting it, then they're not served." Well, that's not true. If I see you and you can hear me, then it's a proper service. Sometimes you can even do what's called a drop service, but we'll get into that later. But what's another part in investigation?
Well, another thing that we do is we do concealed carry handgun classes, and we're looking to expand our training curriculum to include in-service classes for private investigators. That's one area that we're working on. That should be coming soon. Also, we can do find missing family members. We've done that before.
We have.
Or family lineage and things like that.
And that's rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy doing those. Those are far and few between, but we have done them and been successful on several. Finding individuals they didn't even know they didn't know they were adopted, and they come to us and say, "Look, I found out I've got medical issues. My doctor needs my family medical records. My mother tells me she's not my biological mother." It took me a week, but I found the biological father, and he was receptive.
Yeah.
He was a very wealthy man out west, but I let him know on the phone what I was doing, and he was open. He said, "All I want is a photograph," and I sent him a photograph of the family member, and he said, "I can't deny her," and so he was able to send those medical records to the medical facility. Yeah, it didn't go through me; it went through the hospital, of course, or the doctor. But those are rewarding and fun to do.
And that's a little bit background about us and our company, and not that we're going to solely concentrate on private investigations or lawful. Again, like we talked about, we're going to talk about other fun things in later episodes. We're looking to do a political discussion here and there, but we will always include, if we include one side, we might include the other side the next episode.
A little rebuttal.
Yeah, we want all sides represented. We don't want it to be slanted. So, any other topic, current events, like I said, social trends, anything. But every episode is going to have the last call.
The last call, my favorite part.
And that's what we're going to transition to now. We're going to take a little break and get set up for that. And the last call will have Tim and David. I'm going to step out and help Garrett in the producing end on it. Now, occasionally I may partake in the last call, but I'm going to sit this one out.
Jason's more of a beer drinker, and Tim and I are more bourbon whiskey drinkers. So anyhow, okay, we'll take a break.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Welcome back to the Monday.
Howdy.
Welcome back to the Monday afternoon roundtable. This is the closing portion that I like best, called the last call. And what I brought in my brother Tim. Tim Munday is with 10 Star Investigations, part of our group. And Tim and I both enjoy a good drink in the afternoon. It's just something we've always done, something our dad enjoyed doing. So what we're going to do at the end of each of our segments is focus on one different whiskey or one different bourbon and talk about it a little bit. Today we got a really good called Jefferson's Reserve, and there's a couple different ones that I've had the pleasure of drinking before, but the Jefferson's Ocean, we've had it.
We've had Ocean. I've not had Reserve.
Neither have I. And I
got that for a retirement gift and not tried it yet. So here we go.
He's got a good variety of different bourbons and whiskeys, and every time I go to his house, I always break his open and save mine. But anyhow, this is a little bit about it. It's a very old Kentucky straight bourbon. It's a whiskey small batch, 90.2%, which is a little stout. But the unique thing about it, it's got the complex flavors, but also it's rich in color. But it's got a soft finish, and that's what I like about the Jefferson's Ocean, And I drink it on the rocks because it is so smooth. Some whiskeys and bourbons you can't do that. It's just too stout, too strong. But this one has got a good on the back of the tongue. It's got a lot of flavor to it. So I'm gonna pour this thing.
If it's anything close to ocean, it'll be well worth it.
God, yes, ocean's delicious. And the ocean's the unique thing about it is it's aged on ships, actually on the ocean, and then the movement of the ship, along with the aging of the whiskey.
Thank you.
Hey, hold on, let me get this in here. All right. Cheers. Let's test this thing. Cheers, everyone. Wow. It's not as good as the oceans.
I agree. It's a little stouter, I think, than ocean.
It is. I don't know what the alcohol concentration on the oceans. I don't know. I was thinking it was in the 90s, but it may not be.
It is.
Okay.
But is this 90 or 95?
90.2. This has got a little bit of bite on the back of the tongue, but it's good. It's good. It's soft enough.
It's real smooth, yeah.
To drink on the rocks.
I agree.
Some people enjoy it with a soft drink, a ginger ale or something like that. It would be good maybe with a slice of fruit, a lime or a lemon. I think would add to it a little bit.
I agree.
It's just whatever.
I can't drink neat. I have to have it on the rocks. I can't drink a straight warm drink. I can't do it.
I can't either. I need that cool. Plus, what the ice does is open up the flavors. I think it releases those spirits in the whiskey or the bourbon, and it just makes it go down a little better. When it's warm or room temperature, I'm like you. I can't do it. But this is good stuff.
It's not enjoyable.
On a 1 to 10, I'd give this a good solid 8.
I agree.
Good solid 8.
It does. It has good colors, got good taste. Like I said, I was leaning more toward the ocean, and the ocean to me is really, really smooth. And you were the one that called and told me to get ocean next time I was out.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy it. But this is a good close second behind it.
And as Jason and I talking in the earlier segment, Tim retired law enforcement as well. He's got 30 years law enforcement.
40.
40. And I was surprised with the 130 years, I think you said, 120, years total service between us, all three of us. But Tim and I are just 3 years difference in age. And so we've always been really close. And this, in law enforcement, he's had situations where serious situations, as have I. He scared the daylights out of me more times than not, and so has Jason. But we've always stuck together in the law enforcement part of it. And we've taken, this is our second part of our life, the second chapter, I guess. We've got all the issues to go behind it with law enforcement, the good, the hard, and the rough, and the fun. But that's what the podcast I want it to be about, is a little bit of everything, a hodgepodge of what we went through during those years, those 120 years, that the combined service that we have. But it's always fun to have the last call. I don't like really being in bars when they do the last call, but I've been there several times, unfortunately.
In our younger days.
And please don't think we're alcoholics, because Tim might be, but we just have fun. We enjoy life. We enjoy having a good drink with friends. And that's where we're very fortunate. And we're going to have some friends on our show too.
Yes.
And bring those guys in and girls and talk to them, and especially our fellow bourbon and whiskey drinkers, and let them, tell us what
we have a couple bartender people that are close to us. They want to come in and push their product and talk about their experience.
Right, and we're extremely fortunate. We have a bar within 2 blocks of our office, and that's where we go in the evenings to really do our last call. And it's just enjoyable to go in because they have professional bartenders that know how to make a drink. And with the work ethic the way it is right now, sometimes you go in a bar and they just don't know what they're doing. They don't know anything about between a good whiskey and a good blend, or a good bourbon, or how to mix a drink. Sometimes when you ask for drinks on the rocks, they'll throw crushed ice in your drink, and
It's melted before you
oh, I
finish.
know it's not
the
any
drink.
good. But a professional bartender will know that. They'll know how you like your drinks. They won't even have to ask, and that's the way it is with the bar that we like to go to. So anyhow, it's been a good episode, and we look forward to talking to you the next Monday afternoon. Thank you.
Till the next last call.
Cheers.
I suggest next time we maybe take a drink of something before we come in here. That first drink I about said, you know what I'm saying? Is take it.